Today, I want to talk about whether ABC approach works when we work with children with sensory differences. ABC, it is antecedent behavior consequence. We all know, right, this approach. Sort of to understand what is going on, we have to find out antecedent, what causes behavior, and then consequence. We can provide consequence, you know this approach, a change antecedent or consequence to change behavior. Just think, does it always work? Because sometimes, oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah, you know, at schools they have this all the sheets uh, trying to understand challenging behaviors or difficult behaviors of children, like, you know, running away or hitting themselves or something like this, right? And they try to find antecedent and to understand what is the problem and then to help the child consequence. Unfortunately, it doesn't work all the time. Yes, we know that uh, these behaviors can be caused by certain stimuli, right? Or too many stimuli when they are overloaded, or any sudden unpredictable stimuli. This is simple, and we can adjust the environment for our children, but this behavior may be caused by either present but invisible antecedent. What I mean is, it is something, some stimuli which are present, but we cannot see them, we cannot hear them, but the child can because his senses are very, very sharp. Sort of, that's why how suddenly the child was sitting at the desk and whatever, suddenly he or she ran out of the classroom. What caused it? Something that happened outside the classroom. The child can be disturbed by the car with music on. You couldn't hear it. The child could. Sort of, that's what I call present but invisible antecedent. Then these behaviors can be caused by past antecedent. What I mean is something happened in the past which was very unpleasant, painful, disturbing for the child. And you have to know how, for many of them, their memory work. The behavior can be triggered by something, some stimuli, which reminded the child very similar situation, the same stimuli in the past, which was very painful or unpleasant and so on. And when they remember this situation, unpleasant or painful situation, they are feeling this situation now. You know, they sort of the past becomes the present, and their reaction will be the same that was the reaction that was in the past. I will give you just one example uh, to, to show how it works. Again, it will be a personal example with my son. When my children were very young, we like to go to York. We live in Yorkshire. You know, for a day. It's a beautiful city, and several times we went there. And one day, when we were after our tour around the city, we went to the back to the train station. And you know, in York, there are some very narrow streets, like very narrow. And in the corner of one of the street on our way to the train station, there was a shop selling souvenirs, cards, and whatever. And we decided to enter it. Everything was okay, but when my son, and there were 2 steps down, you have to go down, he tripped over and hit the door. And he wasn't happy about it. So I didn't wait for his reaction. I took him, he was quite young. He was again about 7, 8 years old. And took him out of the shop and ran to the train station. 10 or 15 years after that, we went to York again with my son. And on the way back to the train station, suddenly my son rushed forward. And I didn't, he never ran away from me. And he was already, 20 something. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And then I saw it. I saw this shop, corner shop, with souvenirs. And I remembered what happened. So I ran after him. And you know what he did? He ran up to the shop, and what he did, he kicked the door. The revenge was sweet, because last time it was the door that hit him. He kicked this door and calmed down. If it wasn't me, but somebody else with him, how would this person interpret the behavior? Where was the antecedent? In the past. It was a sort of unknown to someone. And that's why they would write in his report, whatever, something, the behavior was out of the blue. I can tell you, in autism, there is nothing out of the blue. So if you don't know or cannot, obviously and understandably, the antecedent, what happened 10 years before, of course you wouldn't be able to interpret this behavior. Again, ABC approach doesn't work in this case. Then probable future antecedents. How can it happen? If something like, in one of the videos I given this example, when the ruler on the teacher's table, half in the air, half on the table, for some children the lesson is over. Because if they cannot see the source of the sound, for example, and the ruler can fall down and produce the sound anytime, they have to watch it, because anything they cannot see, they don't know the sound, will disturb them very much. And that's why for them the lesson is over and they will watch the ruler. So this is probable future antecedent if the child wants to protect himself or herself. And of course, there are last straw antecedents if the child is tired already or not feeling very well and too much demand and whatever. So again, you cannot pinpoint, what triggered it. Anything can trigger difficult behaviors. And another very important, and I have to talk about it, sometimes it is us who trigger their difficult behaviors. It is emotional state of carers, parents, teachers. The Swiss researchers Markram and his team coined the word to describe autism. They call it the intense world syndrome. And they say that all features of autism, social interaction impairments, language and communication problems, cognitive function differences, repetitive behaviors, and so on, are rooted in sensory overload experienced by autistic individuals. That confirms my theory, But the main conclusion is autistic people perceive, feel, and remember too much because of their differences in amygdala, for example, right? When amygdala is affected, the world can become very painful for them, right? Not just disturbing or unpleasant, but painful for them. They feel emotional state of people around of them. By the way, again, there is nothing extrasensory in this case, because how emotions start. They start with sensory feelings, right? What I mean is, when the person is angry, for example, right, and shouting, whatever, his face is red, it is physical feeling, right? And that's why we emit energy. It is physical. And when we emit this energy, it reaches this very hypersensitive people, for example, and they feel the same inside their bodies. I think it was Stephen Shaw who called it echoemotica, like they feel the same symptoms. Symptoms is the wrong word, but the same changes in their bodies, like the person who is angry, because all our emotions start as feelings, right? Physical feelings, and whether we want it or not, we emit these feelings around, this energy. Again, I prefer energy, emotional energy around. And the problem is, some children, they feel this inside their bodies, right? Stephen says echo emotica, right? They feel this. Donna Williams calls it resonance. They resonate with our physical changes in the body. The problem is they don't understand that what they are feeling inside their bodies, right? Like butterflies in the tummy, whatever. It is not about them. It is about person who is next to them, for example. But and some teachers, yes, they are very professional. The problem at home, whatever, and they think it's okay. I can continue with my work. I can hold myself. And they enter the classroom. Still, they consciously, they do not sort of show it. But this energy still is there. And some child, for example, or several children, will feel it inside their bodies. But as it is not theirs, it is not their emotion. Of course, they don't understand what is going on, and they start sort of the twitchy, kicking the air, whatever. And the teacher, of course, will start telling them off, and it is like snowball. So sometimes it is our emotional state that trigger this difficult behavior in children. It's important to remember. And of course, it can be triggered by some synesthetic experiences, but I think we will talk about it in a separate video.